My beautiful sister, one of the most dangerous places to find yourself is outside of God's peace. Okay, my dear? If you're a chosen one, a daughter of the Most High, if you've been walking with God for any length of time, you know, or you may be becoming aware that God's peace is not only a place, it is an atmosphere, okay? It is a mental environment, okay, my dear? Relationships that are founded or that are built outside of God's peace are probably some of the most destructive, harmful relationships you could ever entertain, okay? You run the risk of encountering all sorts of chaotic, confusing, problematic, toxic situations whenever you entertain something that strips you, removes you from God's presence and God's peace, my dear, okay? Here and now, as we enter into cuffing season, the holiday corridor, okay, getting into that time of the year where people want to be booed up, cuffed up, linked up, okay? It is so easy to fall prey to relationships or to situationships even, just for the sake of being, or in participating rather, just for the sake of participating in cuffing season. My dear, there is nothing more dangerous, first of all, than doing something because everyone else is doing it or because it's a season of the year. And secondly, especially when it removes the most, I would say, the most precious gift we have on this earth, which is peace. Okay, my dear? If you are new, welcome. And if you're an OG subscriber, come on in the room, girlfriend. Today, we are going to be talking about the absence of God's peace and why it is so problematic to exist in spaces, not just relationships, jobs, entrepreneurship, business partnerships, any type of relationship or physical place where God's peace is absent. Okay, my dear? If you are new, welcome to Healed Woman. We are a growing, thriving sisterhood of women on fire for two things. One, to becoming women of extraordinary faith, worth, and valor. And two, we're dedicated to overcoming toxic mindsets through Christ-centered recovery. My dear, if you're not subscribed, girl, what are you waiting on, okay? We are a growing, thriving community. If you want to be part of this gang, of this sisterhood where we are leveling up, stepping into our royal position as queens in the kingdom, attracting the love that we deserve and releasing things that do not serve who we are becoming, then this community is for you, boo, okay? So today we are back with another Healed Woman sort of relationship talk. And I really wanted to address God's peace, okay? I really feel like that's something that a lot of God's daughters and sons have either been experiencing or haven't been experiencing at varying levels in this season, okay? Especially in birthing season now in September, 9th month of the year, not specifically only happening in September, but it's the time, okay? Perceive the time, my dear, where a lot of daughters and sons have been called to do things, and now we are about to give birth to them. Now that we are producing and we are preparing to walk into the product of what we've been working on for all these months or for this season, okay, my dear? And this is a time where a lot of relationships may be that product, okay, where the Lord has been preparing a lot of us for marriage, for the one God has for us. And we're about to walk into that relationship, but we need to be aware of when God's peace is missing, okay? God is not obligated to ordain a relationship He did not orchestrate, okay? He is not obligated to co-sign a relationship He did not create, okay? He is not the author of confusion. And if you find yourself in a relationship suddenly confused and dazed and all turned around and wondering why your world is falling apart, that is not from God, okay? I believe I've done a video on when, a relationship is not from God, or how to know that you are in a toxic or problematic relationship. And if not, let me know. If y'all want that video, I will absolutely do it, okay? Forcing a situation, forcing a relationship, a job, anything really, forcing a situation where God is not present, where God is not the author, He is not the He's not the driving force or the motivation for pursuing that, will only lead to misalignment, okay, my dear? Dwelling in a space of eternal chaos and misalignment is so dangerous to your spiritual evolution, so dangerous to your path, to your calling, to your ability to hear the Holy Spirit, okay? Dwelling outside of God's peace means that you are essentially dwelling outside of His presence, okay? In the presence of the Lord, there is peace, there is liberty, there is freedom, there is love, okay? There is a peace that passes all understanding. And if you are experiencing the opposite of that, it's arguable that you are outside of God's immediate presence. Not that he has left you, but that you have walked away from him. As daughters, as healed women, as women of extraordinary faith, we do not desire to dwell outside of these spaces. So I knew I needed to come on here and, well, I knew the Holy Spirit was telling me, my daughter, you got to get on and tell these women, you got to warn these women about what it means to experience life outside of my alignment. Okay, my dear? So before we carry on, let me know in the comments down below, have you ever experienced life outside of God's peace? I know that's a really big question, but we're being transparent in the comments down below, okay? How expensive is peace to you? Peace is very expensive, but how expensive is it to you, okay? How did you know you were ever dwelling outside of God's peace? Let's have a conversation, girlfriends, so we can, first of all, make these comment sections a little bit lit. And second of all, so we can continue to foster amazing conversations and build up this sisterhood, okay, my dear? When we force relationships or entertain people outside of God's peace, outside of his orchestrating, outside of his doing, okay, we attempt to fill God-sized voids, okay, with human-sized objects, with human-sized things, okay, my dear? So we're talking about a void as big as, let's just say, space, and you're trying to use a human to fill that. You're setting yourself up for eternal disappointment, okay? Disappointment and bitterness and resentment in trying to fill God-sized voids with human-sized objects, okay, my dear? You're asking for unnecessary grief, dissatisfaction, and ultimately walking outside of God's alignment, okay, my dear? My beautiful sister, the absence of God's peace is a huge indicator that you are in a situation or relationship that you should not be in, okay? You are treading dangerous waters if you're not already drowning, okay? If you're in the early stages, and we're going to get to how you can identify being outside of God's peace. If you're in the early stages, you're probably treading water and you're realizing, I can't feel the bottom of the ocean. I don't know how far out I am. A wave has carried me out. I've swam out too far, wherever you are in that analogy. If you are close to drowning, God forbid, it means that you've been dwelling outside of his peace for a minute and he's about to swoop in and save your life, girlfriend. He's absolutely going to send you a life raft, okay? He will not let you die. A couple weeks ago, I think I did a word on, or I mentioned, does God allow his children to settle? And I argued the point, I believe the Lord will let us settle for a time in disobedience, okay? He will absolutely step in and be like, okay, my daughter, enough. I've witnessed enough. Now it's my turn to do things my way, okay? But he will not let us settle out of ignorance, okay? So if you are unknowingly treading water in dangerous waters, okay, he will bring you back to shore, okay? So out of ignorance. If you didn't know, he's a good shepherd. But if you are deliberately, intentionally stepping outside of the path he's placed you on, I believe he will let you dwell there for a little bit just to experience what life is like outside of his alignment. And let me tell you, honey, from a personal experience, it's not cute, it's not pretty, it's not the place you want to be. Dwelling outside of God's alignment, existing in places where you do not have the peace that passes all understanding, it is dangerous, it is counterproductive, counterintuitive, okay? It may cause a delay in you arriving to where you actually desire to be, but because you chose to go on your own path or you chose to follow the crowd or however you ended up outside of that aligned place, you are now finding yourself having to take a detour or having to do things again or enduring a season of healing, which was inevitable, but now you have further delayed arriving to that promise, my dear, okay? So this happens in the spiritual realm, stepping outside of God's alignment first happens in the spiritual realm. We absolutely believe that everything that happens here on the physical plane has already happened in the spiritual realm. It's merely a manifestation, okay? So let's talk about how the absence of God's peace shows up. It shows up as mental confusion, okay? If it's already happened in the spiritual, where let's just say you're already in a relationship, you've decided to pursue a relationship that is not God's will for you, which you are now becoming aware of or realizing that this relationship is not in alignment, you start to have a state of mental confusion, okay? You're wondering, why doesn't this feel right? Why doesn't this feel like what I've always desired it to feel? Why do I no longer feel like it is, or why do I no longer sense that this person is patient, kind, long-suffering, okay? The words that describe love, okay, my dear? That's a great way to measure if this person is who the Lord has for you, because they will embody the definition of love found in 1 Corinthians 13. This person's name will be able to be replaced with love is patient, love is kind. And if they aren't, that's not love, my dear, okay? The Lord literally gave us the definition of love. And if anyone in your life, especially a romantic partner or your purpose partner, does not align with that, that is not the person for you. Easily weed that person out, okay? So it shows up as mental confusion, emotional irritation, or moodiness, okay? So we're talking about something that's already happened in the spiritual and how it is manifesting in the physical, okay? So now you are confused. Now you are more irritable. Now you are more moody. You have nothing to sort of ground you anymore because God's peace did that, okay, girlfriend? There is increased friction or tension in the relationship or around your loved ones, okay? You may even be experiencing a physical discomfort or illness, okay? I remember every time, if you know a little bit about my story, I experienced, or I was a victim, now victor, of 2 emotionally abusive relationships. And every time I was around those men, I would literally physically get sick, literally. On my way to visit them or in their presence, I would experience physical signs of illness in their presence. And as soon as I left their presence, healed. There was one, or recovered. There was one instance, a wind blew and literally it like blew a cold into my system on my way to visit this person. And in spending the evening with him, I developed a full out cold. The minute I walked away to go to my car that night and go home, sinuses were decongested, no more phlegm. It was crazy, but these things literally happen. I cannot make this stuff up. Let me know if you've ever experienced something like that, because that's a pretty obvious sign, but a lot of people don't pay attention to it. A lot of people don't draw the analogy or don't draw the relationship between being around someone with negative or toxic energy and physically becoming sick in their presence, okay? And you may even experience increased anxiety or stress. And these are all physical signs of how being in the absence of God's peace will manifest in your life, okay? So I do want to make a distinction. It's not to be confused with a challenging season, okay? God's absence is not to be, or God's silence rather, is not to be equated with his absence, okay? God is never absent. Sometimes he is silent, especially during tests, during challenging moments, okay? During dry seasons, it seems as if, where is God? I cannot find him. But intentionally moving outside of God's alignment and not being able to hear his voice when he is purposefully quiet and observing your actions are 2 different seasons, my dear, 2 completely different seasons, okay? So I definitely want to make that distinction because I know a lot of you may be experiencing a challenging season where you seem like you can't hear him. You seem like there may be increased stress or anxiety or friction in your life. And some of these signs, of course, can be likened to a season of divine disruption, a season of healing, a season of refining, okay? But you would know if you walked away or if you are entertaining a situation that you know your daddy is not proud of. Capital D, daddy, okay? You know that the Holy Spirit is not proud of. You'll feel it in your spirit, girlfriend, okay? I knew that I was not supposed to be entertaining those men. I knew that. And I still kept doing it anyway. And I would still ask the Lord, why am I getting sick every 2 weeks? Why am I XYZ? You know, why is this happening? Why is there increased friction with this person? These are all signs we got to learn to pay attention to, my dear, okay? When you are directly opposing God's instructions for you or directly intentionally choosing to walk in the opposite way or walk parallel to where the Lord would rather have you, the path he'd rather have you on, you know you've made that decision, okay? It's not something that you stumble into, okay? So that's when those signs would apply to that season, okay? So if peace is a state of mind, my dear, if peace is a fruit of the Spirit, okay? Love, peace, joy. Love, peace, joy. I highlighted the wrong word. Love, peace, joy, gentleness, kindness, self-control, etc. If peace is a fruit of the Spirit, it means that it's something the Lord desires to cultivate in us, okay? He desires to prune this in us, okay? He does this through different seasons, different challenging moments, okay? Character development. He wants to prune a spirit of peace, okay? Deep-rooted contentment, okay, in you. When we are in perfect alignment with his will for our life, this is a byproduct of it, okay? Peace is a byproduct of walking in alignment. So if you are walking on a path and you do not feel peace, you do not feel as if peace is being cultivated in you, Like, can we argue that you could be walking outside of that? I definitely want you all to reflect and think about this, because it makes the world of a difference in your relationships, in your life situation, in your heart posture, okay? Even in storms, or even in seasons that are particularly challenging, you will still experience a peace that passes all understanding, because you know God is orchestrating that storm because of your heart posture, because you believe that the Lord is either going to calm the storm or he's going to calm you during the storm. You know that a miracle is waiting for you on the other side. You know that he's coming to your rescue. You know that he will not let you fall nor fail. You know that your walking on water moment is seconds away, okay? So when you are in a situation where you are being tested, it's a little bit different, because you still have that peace that this is just a season. This is going to end. This is not forever. And this is for a purpose, because it's doing something in me. I'm not reacting how I used to react in the past, okay? That's how you know you've grown. When you go through challenging situations and you handle it with maturity and you still feel peace about it. But when you do not, and we're going to talk about some signs, you'll know, okay? So let's talk about a couple signs that you are living outside of God's peace. So the first were just how they manifest, okay, what it would even feel like to have the absence of God's peace manifest in your life. And now we're going to talk about some literal signs that you will be able to notice living in this state. So first, you're suddenly living in chaos and confusion. You feel like a pawn. You feel like a pawn in that you are being controlled by the situation versus you being in control, okay? Or even being able to surrender control to the person in control, okay, to the pilot of your life, and sit back and be the participant he needs you to be. Excuse me. So you suddenly feel as if you are being controlled. You suddenly feel as if you're being manipulated, like you have no say, no opinion. You do not feel validated by the people in your life, okay? You're suddenly living in a place where there's a lot of chaos and confusion. God is not a God of confusion. So if you are suddenly living in a situation, find yourself in a situation where it wasn't as confusing as it used to be, or maybe it's now more confusing, or every day it gets more confusing and chaotic, that's a sure sign that you are absolutely living outside of that alignment, my dear, okay? And we've talked about the difference between like a pruning season and a chaotic season or a wilderness season. You will still have that peace. No matter how painful or arduous it gets, you will still have the peace that God is guiding you. But in a season or in a situation where you are living in chaos, you will feel as if it is never ending. You will feel as if there's no end in sight. You will feel as if there's no way out. You will feel hopeless, okay? A kingdom divided against itself will not stand. It will fall, okay? If you and this person are constantly going to blows, butting heads, or cannot agree, there is a constant state of confusion and chaos in the relationship every time you all come together, okay? You all are a kingdom that is going to fall. You are divided against itself. You're essentially trying to walk together with someone with whom you have no business walking with. You are trying to force a situation that is not beneficial. It is more harmful. It's doing more harm than good in your case. And it's dragging you further and further from the source of the peace and the peace and the presence of calmness that you so desire, okay? Let me know if I'm explaining this in a clear way, because sometimes these spiritual signs are definitely more felt than they are explicable, okay? Than they are easy to explain. But you'll know these signs will be confirmation that you have either once or you are currently living in a state of God's absence, or the absence of God's peace, okay? I would encourage you to stop forcing it. This is the phase where you got to stop forcing it. If you realize that there is chaos no matter what you do with this person or in this situation, stop forcing it, allow what it already is, and remove yourself from that situation or break up with that person. It's inevitable. For you to be able to restore peace and balance to your life, you're going to have to remove the thing that is causing the imbalance. So what are you waiting on, girlfriend? Remove the thing, remove yourself from that situation prayerfully. Remove yourself from that situation, or remove yourself from that position in that person's life, and seek God's face. That peace will return to you, my dear, okay? Another sign that you are living in outside of God's alignment or living outside of his peace is that grace has been lifted for that season, okay? So when people say, or in the spiritual community, when people say grace has been lifted, it means you no longer have the spiritual disposition to handle the situation that you're in. Does that make sense? You no longer have the patience, you no longer have the attitude, the heart posture to deal with whatever situation you're currently in. So it's kind of likened to like senioritis, when you're about to graduate in like 2 weeks and you're just so over finals and tests and whatever, you're ready for prom and graduation and you're just ready to move on. You no longer have the patience to go through the motions of school, of going to school for 7 hours a day, okay? But it goes beyond that, living outside of God's peace. It's when grace has been lifted for that situation, like you feel as if you should no longer be there, but you keep insisting on being there. Honey, what are you forcing? Like, what are you doing in that situation, girlfriend? What are you looking for? What are you hoping to gain by staying in that situation, knowing that grace has run out for that situation? This could be at the tail end of a relationship. Maybe it became toxic over time or became increasingly more toxic, because let's be honest, I do believe people can become toxic over time, but most times they start out that way, and it's who you pair yourself with that reveals the toxic nature of that person. You're receiving signs that you're not supposed to be there. You're feeling the chaos, you're feeling the confusion, you're feeling as if you no longer have the patience or the character to handle this person or this situation, and yet you insist on being there. Maybe out of habit, maybe out of fear of starting over, maybe out of fear of stepping out and maybe everything blowing up in your face. But the longer you stay, girlfriend, the more you are delaying the inevitable. The more you are delaying returning to peace. The more you are delaying returning to what can balance you, restore that balance that you so desire. And that leads us perfectly into our third sign, that you are living outside of God's peace, and that is when your relationship with him is suffering. You have a distant or non-existent relationship with the Creator, since entertaining the situation, since entertaining this person, since dwelling in a space that has now pulled you so far away from his peace that you don't even talk to your Father anymore, that you no longer seek him out in prayer. Fasting is foreign to you. And you no longer know how to get into his presence and seek his face. My dear, God longs to tell you so many things. He longs to take you out of that situation, but you got to go to him. You must seek him. You must return to him. Put that pride aside, girlfriend. Lay it down. Lay that pride aside and say, Lord, I have been in this situation for far too long. It's time I come home. You had your made for more moment like the prodigal son. Arise and go to your Father's house, girlfriend. He is waiting for you with open arms, and he wants to restore that peace that you so desire. I keep saying that, but I want you all to know you desire peace. You desire balance. You desire contentment. You desire tranquility and a sense of calm in your heart, in your home, in your mind. You desire it, girlfriend. But because you have this situation clouding your vision or clouding your desires, you're ignoring your desires, okay? You're neglecting your true desire for returning to peace. Now, your relationship with Jesus is suffering. Probably your personal relationship with yourself is suffering, okay? Self-love is lacking. Self-care is lacking. Like, come on. I am preaching to the choir right now. This is me. This was me. This was me. I endured so many unnecessary situations and delayed returning to peace, all because I thought I was still going to get what I was gunning for. I never got it, girlfriend. Never got it. Never got what I was seeking so intently, okay? Lastly, the last sign that you are dwelling in the absence of God's peace is when there are constant, repetitive warnings that you have ignored, okay? So we're talking about the physical signs, the illnesses, okay? The mysterious illnesses. They're not that mysterious, okay? Your body is literally signaling to you, I feel sick in this person's presence. Or if you get sick at work and you just can't figure out why you're so sick at work, is that job, girlfriend? The Lord don't want you there. He wants to move you out. He has better for you, but you still keep holding on as if that job is going to give you anything better, as if they're going to suddenly wake up and value you as the employee that you are. I'm not knocking people who work 9 to 5. I'm saying that sometimes the job is what's making you sick. It's literally dragging you away from purpose. And the Lord has made it clear he wants you to leave, and yet you keep holding on, staying on, trying to collect that pension. Girlfriend, he has an empire he wants you to build, and you're over here begging for crumbs. You've ignored every warning that the Holy Spirit has sent your way to free you, okay, to liberate you, repetitive messages, divine connections, people he's literally told you need to get out of that relationship. Literally, people will tell you this relationship is not for you. You will hear it in the Spirit. He will confirm it in his word. And yet you ignore it, okay? God will not completely remove himself from you, but he will send signs to warn you, to get your attention, to call your attention back to him and say, hey, we haven't spent any time together. Can you guess why? There's something between us, okay? If you continue to ignore these signs, girlfriend, they will get louder and more repetitive until finally you literally cannot ignore it. It will be everywhere, everywhere. So there's so many ways that you can identify how, what it feels like, what it looks like to be outside of God's peace, outside of his alignment, and what you need to do to restore that balance, okay? Something's off balance when you're outside of God's peace, okay? So I want you to ask yourself these following questions so that you can begin to realign, okay? To get into alignment. Is this person or is this situation worth risking God's peace? Worth risking a lifetime of peace, a lifetime of being secure, of being sure, of being assertive, okay? Of being confident in what the Lord has called you to do, okay? Is this person or situation worth risking a deep feeling of fulfillment for the rest of my life, okay? If the answer is yes, like see sign number 1, okay? Like go back, watch sign number 1 again, okay? 1 through 4. Second question, am I willing to sacrifice for a season to ensure a lifetime of peace? That's good. Are you willing to sacrifice something in this season? Perhaps the job, perhaps the person, the relationship that honestly is probably so toxic you don't even realize. Peace is just the tip of the iceberg, okay? There's so many things below the surface. It's probably causing you to abandon yourself and abandon the purpose God has given you. But that's a video for another day, girlfriend. Are you willing to endure a season of sacrifice, of being uncomfortable, okay? Of doing away with this thing that has caused an imbalance in your life for a lifetime of peace? Remember, I asked you to place in the comments down below, how expensive is peace to you? Because when you realize how expensive peace is, honey, you won't give it up just for anyone. You'll start charging people. Okay, listen, remember we were talking about raising the price of what it costs to access you? Peace is among that price, girlfriend. If people come into your life and all they want to bring is chaos and confusion, bye-bye. Price your way out of that level, okay? Price your way right out of that bracket. And I hope you all realize it's not a physical price, okay? We know this. See my previous video on raising the price of what it costs to access you. Is it worth it? Can you endure a season of being uncomfortable, of sacrificing, okay, to ensure a lifetime of peace? Sometimes the absence of God's peace could come as a result of you being in a wilderness season. It's uncomfortable, it's hot, there's no water, there's no food. You feel as if your resources have run low, but you know that he's getting you from point A to point B, and you just have to endure this season of being uncomfortable to get to a lifetime of peace. So this is obviously not a voluntary, deliberate moving away from his purpose. This just happens to be a season that the Lord is orchestrating a major shift, a major level up, and you're gonna have to just go with the flow, endure some uncomfortable moments to get to where he is taking you. And it will be peaceful, it will be fruitful, it will be productive. Another question you can ask yourself is, what I'm accepting right now worth the cost of my peace, worth the cost of my inner calm, okay? Is what I'm sacrificing right now, is what I'm accepting right now, the behavior, the illness, the moodiness. Come on, girlfriend, what are the signs that you're experiencing in this absence of God's peace? Is it worth the cost of your inner peace? Is what you're experiencing worth the cost of your inner peace, okay, my dear? Lastly, am I escaping or running from a challenging situation just to avoid the work associated with it, okay? So that could be the Lord has told you that you are going to become the leader of a thriving ministry. Hello. But what if I decided, I don't feel like putting in the work for that, and I decided to pursue a 9-to-5 job, or I decided to pursue something that was not for me, okay? Something as benign as literally not pursuing the work he's put on your heart to pursue and choosing to do things your way could result in a season of being outside of his peace. I would be miserable if I stayed at the job where I was. It was just time for me to go. And had I not recognized that it was time for me to go and I had insisted on staying there, I would have been saying yes to settling, yes to accepting less than I deserve and less than God's best. So are you in a season where you are just avoiding a Jonah season? Are you in a Jonah season where you're avoiding the work associated with the promise? Or are you in a season where you're avoiding a fulfilling, mutually beneficial, God-honoring relationship because you're too afraid of facing yourself, of going through a season of healing, of doing the necessary work to be the person that you need to be to walk in that relationship? So you're just settling for what feels good right now? I know I'm kind of calling you out and coming for edges right now, but I'm doing it lovingly, okay? This is how your Heavenly Father wants you to realize, okay? He wants you to realize that it is not a joke to exchange God's peace for settling or for less than what he has for you, my dear, okay? He has an expected outcome from you, and the longer you run, the longer you are delaying the inevitable. My dear sister, I hope these signs were helpful for you. I hope that it was eye-opening. Let me know in the comments down below, what did you learn about being outside of God's peace? And what are some questions you would ask yourself, or that you even have for me that you would add to the list of things to consider, ways that you know you're outside of God's peace? Let me know. Let's start a discussion. My dear, I'm always praying for you all. I'm always hoping and praying for the best, that you all are committed to healing, to stepping into all that God has for you, and for really becoming the queen he's always destined for you to be. So with that said, I pray that you all are dedicated to getting back on the path of alignment, back in God's peace, and I will see you on the other side of healing. So stay blessed, my beautiful sister.